Good evening, Thursday evening, July 2nd. Here in Sports Barn, Eric the Biggie Arnold coming to you as we grind our way through our 30-team MLB preview set. Toronto Blue Jays on tap here for this evening. Before we get into that, I think I formed up my thoughts a little tighter about the virus. Wanted to give you a virus update where I think we are with this virus. One thing I wanted to talk, I've had two different people now remind me that our governor, totalitarian Tom Wolf, has issued a mandatory mask order. I just want to specify for you what the mask order says, because either Wolf himself or the media has misrepresented what the order says. People are believing that it means anytime you go outside, you got to wear a mask. It's not what the order says. The order says that when you're outdoors in public spaces, if social distancing is impossible, you have to wear the mask. You know, okay, leave aside the part that they don't have the authority to do it, but just take the words at face value. If social distancing is impossible. So what that means is when I go for a walk down the road and there's no one around me, I don't have to wear the mask. If I go running on my trail, now I haven't run in a long time, as you can plainly see. So, you know, this is all an exercise in rhetoric because I don't run anymore, which I could. But I don't have to wear the mask because I can social distance. When I get out of the car at the gas station and I put gas in the car, I can social distance. That guy who's getting gas at the other pump is way over there. So I don't have to wear the mask. You know, that is the text of the order. So if you're walking down the street and there's only a handful of people on the street and you can avoid these people, you don't have to wear the mask. That's what it says. If I was, you know, okay, I'll take it. If I'm on a crowded bus, the order would apply where I have to wear the mask. I'm on an empty bus. I don't have to wear the mask. That's what the order says. When social distancing is impossible, when I'm on an empty bus, it's perfectly possible. So in those cases, I would not have to wear the mask. That's the text of the order. Now, of course, we're getting into things like applying how words are written and what they actually mean in a lawless society. So I'm sure Tom Wolf interprets that order that I have to wear the mask at all times because this is a lawless society. It's whatever the government makes up the rules as and what they think it says. You know, you read a word like when impossible to social distance and the government says that's every time you go outside it's impossible, therefore you must wear the mask. When clearly that's not the text of the order. So, you know, you'll get what you get. I'm sure that there are probably going to be Karens out there running around saying, you must wear the mask! You must wear the mask! It's like, make your own common sense judgment if you choose. Wear the mask, don't wear the mask. I have personally, you know, when I go places where everybody's wearing a mask, I don't want to terrify everybody, so I wear the mask. If I'm in a place where no one's wearing a mask, I don't wear the mask. That's just me. So let's give you some idea where we think we're at here with this virus. I crunched a few numbers. I want to, you know, try to get a feel for when is this over? You know, will this ever end? And believe it or not, I think there's some good news here that perhaps, you know, you're going to get one side of the news when you watch the news. You're going to get whatever ABC, Washington Post, CNN wants you to think. What's the real news? This is what I think it is. And again, I'm making this up. I'm just looking at numbers, making assumptions, much like Dr. Fauci. That's all he's doing. He's taking his best guess. And he's been wrong. I almost think I could go back through my old videos and say, recreate what I've said, match it up against Fauci, and I think I'm pretty close to being as right as often as that guy has been. Probably more. But let's leave that aside. So what I did here is number of deaths. Right in here, I'm going to take CDC's most, I guess, favorable mortality percentage. I think they came out with this a couple 6 weeks ago, maybe, where they said, well, all told, we think that the virus, when it infects somebody, you have about a, let's see if I get this right, 0 chance, or said another way, a 0.25% chance of dying. That's a pretty, how to say this, it's a low estimate. It's a low estimate. There are higher estimates out there, but right now, I mean, the CDC, that's the estimate they're kind of coming down with. You know, they have, that's what they think. You know, I know a lot of the leftist media, they think the percentage is much higher. I don't think that's true. You simply would see the hospitals much more filled up everywhere, not just one or two places. So I think that number is probably pretty close to accurate. That's from the whatever CDC stands for. To give you a comparison, the Spanish flu, I mean, that was upwards of 2.5% to 3%. So, you know, an order of magnitude higher, 10%. Regular flu is 0.1%. So, you know, the coronavirus, probably about 1/10 as deadly as the Spanish flu, probably about 2.5 times more deadly than your regular flu. I think that's probably pretty fair. So, we take that number, current deaths at the moment, according to Worldometer, at least Worldometer 6 hours ago, in the United States was about 131,099. So we divide that by our, and that comes out to so let's round, that's about 52, we'll round that down. About 52 million infected. So, in other words, that many are dead. It only kills 1, or I should say 2.5 out of 1,000. Do I have that right? Yeah, I have that right. It kills 2.5 people out of I have that right. 2.5 people out of 1,000. Therefore, if this many are dead, we divide that by the death rate, that comes out to 52 million have been infected. You know, that's how that number, if I take 50, you know, this number here, roughly speaking, 52 million, and I multiply it by this percentage, that would lead to the number of people that have passed away. So, up until this point, right here, there's been 52 million that are either have been infected, have gotten better, have not gotten better and passed away, unfortunately, are currently infected, somewhere around 52 million. I also then went ahead and looked at where we're at right now. For example, the University of Oklahoma, or I guess I said that wrong. Oklahoma, how do they say it? It says OU, Oklahoma University. We'll say Oklahoma University and they can blow me up if I'm wrong. Oklahoma University, they tested their whole football team. They said there was 111 people or players or whatever that were tested. Of that, 14 tested positive. So that is 12.612%. So I figure that is probably a pretty fair representation of how many people in the United States right now that have this thing. the disease is relatively mild for most people, especially for young people. A lot of them don't even know they had it, have it, don't know they had it, get over it, never knew they had it to begin with. So 12.6, I think right now that's probably a fair number as far as who has the disease right now in the United States. So we have 330 million people in the United States Okay, we multiply that times 12.6%, and that comes out to roughly 42 million. So I figure there's around 52 million that have already had this thing. There's probably another 42 million that have it right now. Now granted, there's got to be some overlap between those two groups. In other words, there's probably some kind of double counting going on there. So, 52 plus 42, that's 94. I don't know. Discounting some of that for overlap. I think it's fair to say maybe at this juncture, 80 million people in this country have had it or have it at the moment. 80 million divided by 330 is roughly 25%. So I would think we're about this time, we've probably got about 25% of the population that have had it, have recovered from it. Is that good? Is that bad? It sounds terrible. I mean, that sounds awful. I think the bad part is that this current 12.6% that have it right now, this 42 million, well, if you apply your death number to that, that's going to be probably another 100,000 dead. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I just don't. And that's a total guess. I got nothing to back that up with other than the fact that I believe these viruses tend to lessen in, there's a word and I can't come up with it, deadliness as time goes on. I think that early on, the harshest, worst strains of the virus are out there, and then as time goes on, those kind of disappear. And then the body, the humans, the victims, whatever you want to call us, we become more resistant to the thing. So less of us die. And I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think 100,000 people are going to, die off this latest batch of infected. I think it'll be less than that, maybe half that. I think a fair number that we might end up at once this is all said and done. I hesitate to do this because then, you were wrong. Well, Dr. Fauci throws wrong numbers on the board everywhere, and people still worship him. My father wants him to run for president. But, I don't think that we're going to have another 100 out of this batch. Here's what I think is the good news. I don't think this virus is going to infect the entire 330 million people that are in the United States. The Spanish virus, best numbers I could find on that, were it infected roughly 28% of the population. That was in 1918. I think it's unreasonable to expect that only 28% of our population is going to be infected for a couple reasons. I think this virus might be just slightly more communicable than the Spanish virus. And certainly we move around a lot more than they did in 1918. Even with your various lockdowns and restrictions and whatnot, which we've way done more than whatever they did in 1918. They didn't do much of that in 1918. Well, we've gone, beyond, up above and beyond with that. And even with that, we still move around probably much, much more than they did in 1918. So I'm kind of thinking 28%, no way. You know, I'm thinking maybe 50, maybe even more. You know, 50 is 165 million. Maybe that number goes up as high as 200 million. You know, that would be 50%. 200, what would that be, around 60%? I don't think it's going to go much higher than that. You know, the virus will simply grow slower and slower as it has less people to infect. In other words, the virus is in a room with an infected person, but all the other people in the room have already had the thing. It's got nowhere to go. It'll die. It has to find that person that hasn't been infected yet. There are going to be people in this country, areas, geographic areas, they're never going to get infected. The virus may never make it to some of these small towns in the middle of nowhere where there's very little interaction with the outside world. So at some point here, I think soon, this thing's just going to simply stop growing. I think for a while, you know, maybe another month, you're going to see a consistent number of cases. I don't think it's going to skyrocket much past where it is. I think it might hold this number for a while, maybe go up a little, but, you know, I don't think you're going to see a huge spike in cases where suddenly it goes up by a factor of 4 or 5. You know, what are we saying right now as far as positive cases? 50,000? You know, I don't think we're going to start suddenly seeing 500,000 cases a day. Just don't. So as these cases, you know, eventually they're going to drop. And once they start dropping, I actually think they're going to drop pretty quick. It wouldn't surprise me that as the summer ends, the cases, you know, are going to be really dropping hard. So I kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel here. We live out in the sticks here. If you've been reading any of your various news articles about how horrible it is, people are detonating fireworks in the city and nobody can get in any sleep, and there are firework fights going on down in Philadelphia. Here we just set off fireworks. You know, we don't throw them at each other. We follow common sense and safety protocols when we set them off. So as you can hear, one of my neighbors is availing himself of some of his few freedoms left. So that's what that noise is. At any rate, like I said, I think there's actual hope here. I really do. But that aside, let's quick go here to the Toronto Blue Jays. Is there any hope for these guys? Yeah, this has been a money-chewing team here. If you played the Blue Jays for the last 5 years, you've lost money. They've chewed up money. They're not good. Not good. 67 wins last year as they finished off their, I guess, rebuild, if you will. They're finally starting to integrate some of their hot, young talent into the lineup. Bichette, whose name now suddenly escapes me, I think his name's Bo Bichette. Is that right? Maybe that's right. I don't know. Kayvon Biggio, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Those, I guess, would be your best players. But some of those guys are just so young. Bichette and Guerrero are both under 22, I think. So that makes me a little nervous. You know, the way this team has chewed money, you know, just makes me think overrated. You know, this is a team that won 67 games last year. 28, extrapolate the winning percentage, that's 76 games. Vegas would therefore be expecting a 9-game improvement by these guys. So they're automatically expecting these young players to just be good. You know, in other words, okay, Mr. 21 years old, don't just do the best you can. We're expecting you to be good. I think that's a lot to ask of any 21-year-old player, regardless of his pedigree. You know, a lot of Hall of Fame players did not break into the majors until they were 23, 24. So expecting a 21-year-old to just dominate, I think that could be unreasonable. So we're going to fade these guys. You know, I don't think I've taken an opinion on many of these teams lately. But we think that 28 is probably just a little too high for the Blue Jays, particularly when you're in the same division as the Yankees and the Rays and deep, deep pockets in Boston, regardless of who's on that team. So 28, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. So I guess I spent, 15 minutes talking about the virus and 3 minutes talking about the Blue Jays. NL East is next. That's what's next. We'll pump that out, get that done, and then we'll be pretty much ready to go, and we'll still have 2 weeks to go. So, I guess the Atlanta Braves are next alphabetically, and then we'll just move on from there. So thanks for being here. Like I said, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel here as far as the virus. I mean, you know, again, so a couple other words here I wanted to say about the virus. To me, what causes the light to be at the end of the tunnel is the virus moves so fast. It's so communicable that, you know, it's just going to burn itself out. It would, you know, it would have been cool if we could have come up with a vaccine that worked for this thing in May or April, but apparently that's just not how those things work. And if your end game is, we're just going to lock everything down and hope that this thing grows slow enough that we can then vaccinate everybody and save some lives, save some of these 0.25% people that get this thing and die. I just don't think that's practicable or practical. I just don't think that works. It moves too fast. This thing was growing fast when like New York had the hard and fast, no one outside lockdown, and people were still getting it. It moves fast, so I just don't see that as a possibility. This vaccination is nowhere on the horizon as far as I can tell. And don't forget, you're assuming that there's going to be one. There's all kind of viruses that have no vaccination. People always keep saying on the internet, HIV has no vaccination. That's a virus. So to assume that A, there's even going to be one that works, and B, that we're going to have it ready in any kind of time frame that makes sense, I think it's just nuts. You know, it's just not going to happen. This thing's going to burn through and be done by, you know, probably the end of the year, if not sooner. So it's going to be over soon one way or the other. I think, and I don't think I'm the only one that said that. I'll look that one up on the internet. I think somebody said that. But, all right, very good. Thanks for being here. Atlanta Braves are next. Sports coming. Can't wait. Can't wait to handicap sports instead of real life. Then at least when you lose, oh well, my mistake. When you handicap real life and you're wrong, everybody gets mad at you. So we'll try to get back to sports. That's what we're good at. That's what we want to do. Eric Arnold signing off.